Okay. Hi everybody. This is Deepak Kumar and Nalin Kumar, and we'll be telling you today about how to count objects in an image by detecting them and then marking them. Okay. So first of all, like, everybody have to from their get from the GitHub page we have send you the link of please in the exercise IPYNB file, open that and click on the open with collab. Okay, so yeah, after that, just clone the run the first cell so that we could clone the GitHub repository to get the data. Okay. Yeah. So meanwhile, let me tell you. So what are problem like what type of counting we'll be doing? So object counting is an problem in computer vision, which have really a lot of real world application in industry and academia both. So um, the cell counting problem in biology or highly trafficked roadways, congestion calculations so that it can be more planned. So all these things can be done using object counting in an image in simple, if we say in simpler terms. So but here we won't be dealing with the complex examples. We'll be counting image in a really simple image with a really simple shape. So few assumptions are there that let's in our image, the shape of the object which we will be counting, all of them are of similar shape, and rest all is allowed. Like they can overlap each other, they can have different colors and all those things. So the test image which we will be doing is this image. So as you see, there are lots of balls overlapping other balls. So we are trying to count these balls. Okay, so at the end of the this workshop, we'll be able to mark the center of these balls. So yeah. So, okay, so let's first let me give you the overview of what things we will be covering. So first we'll be talking about just a little bit about the libraries we'll be using, then the how the computers interpret these images while coding, and then we'll look upon some methods to uh, solve this very problem of counting objects in an image without using any neural networks. And after that, we'll be doing the same thing with using neural networks. And finally, we'll see how to create the data set for such tasks, and how to train them, and then how to we'll see some testing over that. Okay, so let's start with the libraries. Okay, so mainly our code is based on these five libraries: OpenCV, Pillow, NumPy, Keras, and Math. So okay, so let's first start with the math library. The math library is a really simple library used for simple mathematical expressions and tasks. Uh, we want to find square root, we want to multiply those things. Then there is NumPy. NumPy, you can say it's like you want vectors. So in computer, the arrays and or the matrices. So to handle calculations or tasks related to them, we are using NumPy. For model architectures, uh, uh, making the models, neural network models, we will be using Keras. And then the Pillow and OpenCV essentially both are for handling the images, but OpenCV have some really advanced functions, while Pillow is just for simpler tasks like cropping, adding filters, etc. etc. So okay, so let's first see how these images are interpreted in our codes. So first will be uh, first, we should understand that these images are essentially a matrix with each element of that matrix is a pixel value. So you divide the image into grid of pixels. So and each one block you call a pixel, and that's its value is a three element matrix kind of representation, which have a value for blue color, a value for green color, and a value for red color. So these are the primary colors. So on these values for each color range from 0 to 255, and based on the combinations we get the desired color for the pixel. Okay, so yeah, so first let's see how the image appears when we open it with using Pillow. So okay, yeah. So here to visualize the image, we are using CV2 IMShow. So CV2 IMShow is a compute OpenCV's uh, visualization tool. So it behaves like as the OpenCV interprets the image. So that's why the Pillow interprets the image as as RGB channels. So the in a pixel, the three elements which will be first one will correspond to the red color, the second with the green color, and the third one with the blue color. But in OpenCV, it's a bit different. So this is how the image appears when you open it with a Pillow, and similarly, this is how it appears when you open with OpenCV. So,
Nalin, I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you please increase the font size?
okay, is it better?
Yes, it's better now. Thanks.
Okay, so yeah, so now I was on like you can see how the Pillow opens an image and how the OpenCV opens an image. You can see the difference. So the difference is that what the Pillow sees as red, the OpenCV sees as blue. Okay, so the, that is essentially the difference between the image read by OpenCV and Pillow. So that's with the Pillow, but okay, let's go on how to like how the image matrix itself appears. So you can see this matrix with each element. This is a single element of the matrix, 255, 255, 255. So uh, this one is for OpenCV. The matrix is formed when we read the image through using OpenCV. So this is blue color, this is green, this is red. So yeah, so this is a single unit of the image. Now you can similarly check for the Pillow's image matrix how it appears. Yeah, so that you can do yourself. Just either you can write the code or uncomment the cell. Okay. Now let's see another thing that these matrix are really heavy while you are doing computations, like training them or some pre-processing tasks, because so you want them as much resource as you want. So currently the shape of these matrix is height comma width comma 3, as the 3 is the channel, red, blue and green. So you can reduce them. Okay, so okay, I guess this thing is a little bit wrong. The new shape will be height width comma 1, height comma width comma 1. So instead of the 3 channels, you can convert it into a single channel. So usually it is called a grayscale image instead of an RBG or BGR image, RGB or BGR image. So that that's that. So how can one get a grayscale image, or what is a grayscale image? Grayscale image is essentially a weighted average of the RGB image. So the single unit which we saw here, the single element of the matrix, this 255, 255, 255, you essentially multiply some weights to each of them and add them, and that will be the single element of the matrix. So there's a function for that in OpenCV, uh, color BGR to gray. So this one, the weights are like 0.114 for blue, 0.299 for red, 0.587 for green. So earlier the image which was like this one is now like this one. So you didn't exactly lose your uh, image feature, color feature of the image, uh, but you still reduce the matrix size. So yeah, uh, uh, so this is that, and now you can try creating your own single channel matrix without using any OpenCV. Uh, as you know the matrix, you know the element, so you can take out the single element from the matrix and then average it out and then create a new matrix. So you can write it code, or yeah, you can just uncomment the thing. Okay. Yeah. So this is all how much you need to know about image to count and count images, count objects in the image. So let's get on with how to count without the neural networks. Okay. So neural networks. Without neural networks, there are two methods which we will be discussing. First one is the contour method. The second one is the hue gradient method. So uh, okay, so contour method, you are trying to both of these methods is essentially you are trying to find out the edges in the image, and based on those edges, you are trying to separate out some regions, and the enclosed regions will be the one which you are interested in. So okay, so in contour, uh, for using contour, first you change the image to grayscale image, and then apply a threshold on the image. Threshold is essentially the grayscale image. You are even further reducing it by making it anything lesser than your threshold value being 0 and above that being 1. So you are even changing the grayscale image to a black and white image. So yeah, so black and that is for the threshold. Then you apply the contours function, which is available in CV2, and so to count the number of objects, you just count the number of contours in the image. So here, as you see, these are the contours. So the whole image itself is marked in one contour also, but even if you subtract that one, let's say you assume that in all of your images will be a contour mark enclosing your whole image, still there are some problems with the contour method. As you can see, there are two contours inside this grayish ball. Okay, so I'll so these these problems you can try out to find, like there are few images available in the data sets. There are 5 images. You can try out how this contour methods behave with each one of them. Yeah, you can see or try to understand what kind of images it, like this one I call it somehow it's good. I can call it good, but in what cases it will be really worse. So you can try that out and see how when the contour method fails and when it can be a good thing to use. Okay, so uh, okay, so you try that out. After that will be okay. So after that, so let's go to the Hope gradient methods. So in Hope gradient method, you use Hope transform over the grayscale image to to uh, to get circles. In this method, you essentially get the circles. In the previous one, it wasn't actually supposed to be any circle per se. Like this one is just a dot, and the biggest one is a rectangle. But in the co-gradient method, you essentially get the circles. So, but still, these circles won't be. Sometimes won't be, sometimes not, actually many most of the times won't be suffice to your task. uh, okay, so let me get back to our image which earlier in the beginning I showed you. So see this image in like when we try to do the whole gradient method or uh, the contour method, it won't be able to uh, get the boundaries. I would say not even half of them, because there are a lot of overlaps. There are several balls hiding in the shadows, you can say. So uh, it won't be possible for these methods to get those balls in their counting. So in Hope gradient method also, as you see, somehow this thing is a ball. So that's why you can't rely on these methods very much. You can again see on those 5 images which I already mentioned in are available in dataset, that how these gradient methods behave uh, with all those images, in what kind of images it is better, and what kind of images it is worse. You will see that when like, these balls have not a fixed. Okay, let me show you a few examples here. So let's discuss this thing so that we can understand why there is a need for the neural network to work here. See. So here our balls are not of a same color, and and they are overlapping also, and Okay, this is a bit harsh for even for gradient method. We can adjust that with adjusting the hyperparameters of the transform, but still uh, we won't be able to, like, you can see these balls it is getting, these balls it is getting, even these ones it is getting, but the ones which are in overlap, it won't be able to, it is not even getting down, and it won't be able to get even when we try to fine tune the transform. So so overlaps, different colors, design, like some balls have variety of designs in between them, or even if they're of same color due to lighting or something, some of the pixels in between the balls are of some different, not in like alignment with the neighboring pixels in terms of color. So that will cause these methods to fail. So okay, so that's why we need the neural networks to train and understand how the essential shape of the images, and so that it can detect them and then we can count them. Okay, so now we'll be looking upon some how these neural networks are present in the computer vision. So I'll be handing over to Nalin. Okay, so
Thank you, Deepak. So let's have some overview on the introduction to deep learning for computer vision. Uh, so first, let us see what is the goal of computer vision, or what are the tasks in computer vision we need to handle. So the basic goal of computer vision is to look images, to perceive images how human perceives them. So so given an image, we want to extract some useful features or informations from that image. So the tasks in computer vision are optical character reader. In the medical imaging, uh, we have like X-rays. We can perform some computer vision algorithms on that, and see whether a patient has some disease or not. The the fingerprint recognition and biometrics, and also some classification and segmentation tasks. So let's see what deep learning is. So deep learning is a subfield of machine learning, and it was inspired from the function and structure of our brain. So as you can see here, one image, suppose this cat image is the input, so it will pass through the layers and then predict whether it is a cat or dog. So how to train these will not get into the will not get into deep will not get deep into this, and will just over to CN, how CN functions. So CNN is a type of artificial neural network which is inspired by how we see images, how our eyes function. So it is widely used for visual imagery, and it has following layers: convolution, pooling, and fully connected. We'll be discussing these in the upcoming slides. So suppose we want to classify whether this image has this X mark or not. So we give the white pixel value -1 and the black pixel value as 1. So uh, so how we would see whether the mark is present or not. We would see like whether this feature is present or not. This diagonal mark is present or not. So yeah, let's move on to the next slide. So using these three matrices or features, we can tell whether the whole image is whether the whole image contains the X mark or not. So how it functions, like this is a type of sliding window, and the algorithm is sliding window. So we slide this feature matrix through the original image and calculate the similarity between the feature window and the original image. So here it is simple dot product. So and we'll do the dot product and normalize, like by we do the dot product 1 into -1 plus -1 into -1. So we'll do the sum over all 9 elements and we'll divide it by 9. So after this, will this activation function we apply on the after performing the convolution layer. So basically ReLU, what it does is it the values which are negative, it replaces it with 0, and the values which are positive, it keeps as it is. Like here it is 0 minus 0.1, it makes it 0, and the rest, the positive values are as they are. So after the ReLU activation function, we want to see whether that the feature is present in that window or not. So we'll use a maximum pooling layer where what it does is the given window, whether that feature is available or not. So in this window 1.0 is the maximum. So we also we can't process this whole image, it would be computationally very inefficient. So we want to only focus on the features which are present or not. So yeah, we max pool them and we'll get a smaller matrix. After that, we just flatten them and perform a softmax activation function. So flattening means we got three different matrices for three different features. So we flatten them, like the 1.0 would come onto the first element, 0.5, then 0.5, then 0.5, then 1.0, 0.1, like this. We flatten all the three matrices in one n cross one dimensional matrix, and then we apply the softmax function, which essentially gives a probability distribution in whether the feature is whether the image contains X or not, here for this particular example. So real world applications for this, currently CNNs are being used in face detection and recognition algorithms, and so CNNs are also being used in text classifications and sentiment analysis tasks. So also in document like OCR, it is being used in bioinformatics, and now we'll move on to the object counting. So so mobile net v2 will be focusing. So Deepak showed you this image. Will be first calculate the radius manually, and then wait a minute. So yeah, for this purpose, for training a object detection model, we'll use the pre-built MobileNet V2 architecture, which is given in the Keras. So, mm, so this MobileNet V2 architecture looks like this. The input layer, then it passes through so it is a big complex uh, stack of layers, so we'll not get deep into it. And so yeah, you can try training a simple CNN model. So here is one example. So first we give the input, then we apply the convolution layer as showed in the presentation. Then we apply the activation function. Then we stack one more convolution layer activation function. Then we do the max pooling thing, and flattening. After flattening, we pass it through a full feed forward neural network. Then we'll get the output after passing that dense layer through a softmax activation function. So you can try your own CNN models. Yeah, you can use it to write your code here. So now we see how our how our data set is created, and how we train that. So yeah, first we suppose for this example, we calculated the radius of these balls, which was approx 30 cross 30. So we took a window of 60 cross 60 and uh, manually cropped the image where the whole ball is present in the window. So that one is given label 1, and the rest all are given label 0. Uh, yeah, so this code is will not be running these. We'll be uploading the data later after this workshop gets over. So you can try this later. So what it does is we'll be uploading the manually cropped images in the label 1 folder, and using that and the source image, you can create your data set, the whole data set. So this is the code, and yeah. So however, so the number of balls were approximately 190 to 200, but the total number of images would be too much. So the number of images labeled 0 would be very much larger than that of the label 1. So this is called the class imbalance problem, and it would be biased towards the label 0 images. So how to handle this? So one solution is to rotate the image, and also we can flip the image upwards or rightwards. So yeah, you can try this on your notebook. The actual image is this. Now we will rotate the image, which looks like this. And this is the left right flip of the image. As you can see, this dark blue ball is right here, and it is in the leftmost corner. This image. So this way we can create or generate more label 1 images. However, these are only 7 times the original one. So we'll need to remove the zero labeled images. So these are the code for. So yeah, so our manually cropped images were in label 1 folder. We now flip those images, and then we would rotate it, so by 90 degree, 180, and so on. Then we'll do it the same thing on the flipped image. We'll rotate the flipped image 4 times. So yeah, now we'll train. So we'll see how the training works. So yeah, here, since our label 0 images were too large, so we need to remove those. So we manually take 6400 label 0 images and rest all the label 1 images. Then we shuffle them and pass it through the model, which is MobileNet here. So, yeah, here it is. MOB is equal to, so this thing, MOB is the model of MobileNet V2 architecture. So we would train on this data set, then now Deepak will explain the rest of the things.
Yeah, so yes, for the training part, as you saw, we needed to solve the class imbalance problem. Hence, but still we didn't wanted to lose the images, nearby images of the one labeled image. So like a cropped image of which encloses the complete ball, we don't want to lose its neighboring neighboring images which might not contain a complete ball, any complete balls, but it would give a really helpful information to suggest how the like, surroundings of a label 1 image looks like. So to not lose that, we will be doing the thing by the images which we need to remove randomly, so that the ratio of the 0 label and 1 label can be 3:1, will be done after every 2 epochs, so that we can hope the surrounding images of the every one labeled one labeled cropped image can in some epoch it will get into the training. So in this way we can expect our model to have the complete knowledge of the image, the whole image. So and finally we'll save the image, save the model. Okay, so you can save the model which you might have created or will create or are creating while we explained you a simple CNN model. Okay, sample CNN model. So similar to this one, you can create one and try to train it and then save it. But we haven't shared that data because it will consume a really long time. The computation. This is somewhat kind of an exhaustive search in an image for our objects. So that's why these are really computationally heavy. But these are very much reliable than the the models which are trained on the feature maps, extracted feature maps. So you save, you can save that model. Now let's go to the testing part. So now you trained on the cropped part of an image. Okay, you trained on a diameter cross diameter size images. You cropped those and then trained the model on that, so it can predict only on that only. So when you give a complete image, few informations you want to know. Okay, so first one is like you want to know the diameter of the object. Like when if you give a image to the model trained on the ball thing, you wanted to have a knowledge of what is the diameter of a ball while testing. So, but uh, this can be calculated without any manual intervention. So, so so first of all, you reshape image to make the width and height even, an even number, so that our sliding windows won't throw error while it reaches the ends. So after that, the main thing comes is finding the radius of the object in the image. So now those methods of contour and Hogue circles can be used here, because those methods, yeah, so if you see uh, con- contour and Hogue circles, they have a pretty decent knowledge about these radiuses. So if you ignore this big rectangle, and you can say, if you can if you find out the radius of this enclosure and this enclosure, these six enclosures, and the remaining two contours, you can expect it will be much more towards the, like, you can use some statistics like average or mode, or these things, they will be more towards the actual radius of the image, of the balls, hence of actual radius of the ball. So you can use these methods to find out the radius. Okay, but what we did, we didn't used uh, those methods, because even with these, you can have a better way of doing this thing. So let me show you in this image, because that bias, that small bit of error can be really big in these kind of images, and it take a lot of painstaking task to fine tune those methods for a certain image. So you can't expect them to behave really good on their own. So instead, what you can do, you can create some circles, and try to uh, on try to try to do the template matching with the original image. And if the matching is quite high, you can say that yeah, that circle which you created is the shape of the objects in your image. So uh, uh, so by the template matching, you can almost, not exactly, but almost, you can get to near the radius of these balls. So let me show you the code for the template matching here. Yeah. 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 So so this is the function which do the template matching. So first you create in certain range. So actually you should have certain idea about what kind of images you are testing. It can't be really vague from your the image which you trained on. So if you have a certain idea, you can create those ranges, circles, and then do the template matching, and get a radius. So if you see that the window which we the model mm, predicts on, if the image is inside it, it was trained to be 1. So if my window, or the crop section, is bigger than the actual image, it is fine for me. Like if it is a like too much bigger, like if even if half of a second ball and like half of the neighboring balls comes into the image, but one ball is completely inside it, it's still fine for me. It's still fine for the model. Actually, it's still fine for the model, uh, but you don't want it to be smaller than the balls. So what you do, you take the maximum of your templates, the best match templates. So in that way, you get to know the radius of the balls in the image. So after getting the radius, then it's pretty simple. You crop the image based with the you slide a window of the diameter size twice the radius, and ask your model whether there is a ball in it. If there is a ball in it, you can mark its center, or you can mark its center, and if it isn't, then you can move on. So in this way, you can slide your window of diameter cross diameter size over your whole image, so that you can get training. You can get several markings. So but yeah, so after you get markings, it's still not done tasks, because it it like error is model is not, like, you can't say it is a perfectly trained. It won't do errors. And even it can, like, if see, earlier I said that a ball completely enclosed in a window is good enough for us, but if it slides little bit here and there, and but still it is inside the window completely, the model will mark it. But we don't want too many marks. Like, this will just create multiple markings for the same ball. And to remove that, what you do, you you see the clusters of the markings, and in with certain threshold you can eliminate that. In this much threshold, you won't consider any you would consider all the markings as a single marking. So in this way, you can really reduce a lot of markings, and remove the duplicate markings to get the correct number of balls. So uh, for that, you can use this find centers. Uh, for the radius part, you can, like, you can try on the 1.jpg and 2.jpg available. So 1.jpg, 2.jpg available in the data section. So you can try out by changing this threshold value. So as earlier I said, that threshold sees above a certain threshold, it takes it as a 1, and below that it takes it as 0. So by playing with the threshold value, you can see, or try to fine tune, or try to see, is it actually finding the radiuses or not. So, like, if it with different not even shapes, I would say, even if a circle, but certainly different, a certain different object, if you say, um, let's say oval shape, it's almost circle, but for that, this like, certainly this code won't do. You would have to do some adjustments, so that it could find up in radius, so that an object can be completely, most of the objects can be completely enclosed in the window. So uh, yeah, so you can play with these images. Okay. Now, after removing the duplicate centers, you now, whatever the markings you have, you just count those markings, and that is the number of objects you have in your image. So we can try out few. So as we have models pre-saved, so let's check out the mobile net. So as this is an exhaustive search, it would take a lot of time. So meanwhile it is running. Let's see another example. So here what we have is stack of steel rods. Okay, so steel rods, or you can say the reinforcement bars you have. So the cross section of it. Okay, so let me show you its image. Yeah. So it looks like these. So if you look closer, you have essentially circles here also. You want to count these circles, and then you have the number of steel rods here. So uh, it's similar tasks, but as the circles here are really small and not exactly circles, we would prefer to use different radius finder, so that you would like to fine tune that and to, to find the radiuses of these things. So we'll be uploading the uh, test data set, training data set, the manually cropped images, and the uh, zero labels also on our GitHub. You can take it as a homework exercise, or you can try it later. That you can try to find out the number of rods in the image using the pipeline which we just mentioned. So okay, so then you can so we have a pre-trained model for that, but you can see it like just don't see this find radius. You can try to find this one out, and yeah, so the model is still running. It actually, at least it find out the radius. So the radius is 28 for the image. uh, we can check, we can check that whether this radius is correct or not. Okay. Yeah, so to see that, let's just crop it.
I guess we'll have to use another app.
Yeah, so as you can see, the size is 60 size is 60 cross 60. I can zoom that. Okay, so I guess I can't zoom this one, but like I can copy this one. So yeah, it's not doing things. So okay, okay, take my word, it is 60. So the radius should be 30, but 28 is still good. Okay. Um, I guess we won't be able to run the second one because first one is itself taking a lot of time. So meanwhile, we can see that how uh, this one the result of the rod finder is like. Yeah, so output is, yeah, here it's saved. So yes, I should download it so that it is bigger. Yeah, you can see these are the markings. So a lot of markings are like not done. These rods are not marked, but still it is pretty decent one to it is marking most of the rods. So you can see it is even the ones which are in shadows, or as you can say, or is overlapped by some other one, are marked. So this process takes bit time, but yes, it is. It is pretty decent. Okay, it is. I mean, like I can show you the result of this one also. It isn't. It is taking a lot of time. So, okay. Yeah. Let me- Oh, sorry. It's running. Yeah. So output of this one looks like this. So as you can see, a lot of balls are still not marked, but as you can see, this ball is in behind these 4 or 5 balls. It is overlapped by these, or this one. This one is yeah, this one is a lot behind, but still it is marked. Some are unmarked also, so surely there will be errors, but it can reduce the some are twice marked also. So here our duplicate reducing thing has failed. So but still you can say it can reduce a lot of the boring laborious tasks of counting in an image. So yeah, that is that. So this method can be generalized over several. So here we discussed only the simpler shapes, but you can certainly uh, do that with cell countings and all those smooth shaped images. Okay, so in any of the previous exercises, if anyone have any doubt or somebody is stuck at any place, one can ask regarding that. Meanwhile it runs. Okay, your question, I have some forms where we have check boxes that are checked and unchecked. Uh, I guess that is doable, but I don't think it is even needed here because okay, if the number of boxes are a lot and you want to, I mean, this method can certainly solve this problem, but it would actually surpass the this one. Okay, can you say whether these checks are handmade or like computer generated? If it is computer generated, I don't think there is a need to even train a CNN. But if these checks are handmade, one can certainly say this method can solve this. Okay. Anyone having any queries related to any previous exercises? The last one you can keep it as for later with the counting of the steel rods, but or even some theoretical doubts you can ask. Okay. Yeah, these okay noises around the corners. Okay, I guess if it is a scanned image, it must be handmade check ticks. So it is doable by this method. Okay. If anybody doesn't have any queries further, then I guess either we can just wait for this to complete, or we can say it's done pretty early. Okay, so at least I can add a trivia. So why this is taking so much time to predict is because actually the exhaustive search is going over about 2 lakh windows to check in whether in those windows there is a ball or not. So that's that. Okay, so I guess organizers can take a call whether we can wait, whether to wait for the find centers to end, or
Yeah, yeah. We have time. We can wait.
okay.
So Aditya says, can't you change any parameter to take less values and lose out on accuracy maybe?
Uh, yeah, obviously, we certainly can do that. Like the sliding window, you can certainly increase the stride of the sliding window. So what I mean is, okay, so the window when it slides over this image, you can say that instead of sliding like after each pixel, instead you can just skip 4 pixels after each window, or a 5 6 pixel. But yeah, so in that, if you exceed a certain amount, which will be like you can say 50, not 50 but even 20 35% of the radius of the image, then it will be a really problem, because see, these the objects which are hidden behind the other balls, they can be missed if you skip too much, or the stride is too big. So that is, but certainly the search can be shortened uh, if you increase the stride. And regarding other parameters, you can decrease the number of hyperparameters in the model. Okay, but I guess MobileNet is pretty light model. It isn't much heavy, so it's just have 3 million parameters. So I guess um, reducing further would be like, why to use even why to even use the CNN. So I guess it is taking a bit more time than usual.
If someone has any questions, you can post them here. Maybe the speakers can answer them.
Okay, yeah, this is the interesting. So this is actually the next step. So if the objects or rods or balls, like whatever in the images of different radius, if you say, like if you consider these are the circular shapes, uh, uh, then in a same image, of course, then what you have is like, uh, if your window is greater than that, so if like, so let's say in this image, if most of our balls are of same radius, you can say, and few are of lesser, uh, if it is higher, then we might be missing them. But if the number of the larger number of balls have same length radius, then the all the lesser length radiuses will be handled easily. But if all of them vary too much, certainly this method fails. And then actually you might need like the sliding window of variable sizes. And actually that will be even that will take even more longer time. Okay, so Meanwhile, I would like to point out one more thing. Like here we are doing exhaustive search, but in object detection, you would see usually they train on the feature map. They extract the region of interests, like in the images, and try to then try to find out in those region of interest. They train on over those region of interest that what are that they are whatever the object they're trying to find, whether they are there or not. But in the object counting, especially when they're crowded and overlapping each other, then that strategy fails, because you won't be able to get the region of interest. Uh, I mean, yeah. So the region of interest won't be the actual region which you would like the model to train, because the balls which are overlapped, or the balls which are behind other balls, uh, won't be in that in the most of the region interest algorithms which you try to find. OMR sheet score. Okay. Uh, Actually, OMR sheet is pretty clean, and okay. So as I mentioned in this exercise, yeah. So this one, yeah. So when you will try these out, so as you can see, I purposefully placed this image in which you have all the objects are separately and quite organized. So there are no overlappings and those things. So you can say the OMR sheets are similar kind of thing. So you can after a few after certain uh, tuning with the parameters, the contour methods or Hughes circle method can be used there to solve the OMR sheet score finder thing. You don't actually need, and also like once you find the parameters for the contours, you can repeatedly use that, because the OMR sheets are a standard thing, so you won't be needing to. You don't actually need the neural networks.
Nalin, there's a question from Aditya.
Yeah. So okay. So no, like eh, object detection in general is with uh, any shapes, not even polygon, even and closed shape, you can say. So so like this object counting is done for humans also, like how many humans are on the street uh, uh, together. So but like the method we point out here is a really basic one, but and then it will be used, it can be used only for like as you correctly wrote, like polygons, convex, yeah, you can say regular shape polygons, but this method only. But for the human, detecting how many humans on the street, I think one would prefer to use the neural network methods like YOLO or Inception, fast RCN and ImageNet. So those neural networks which are based on the concept of learning on the region of interest. Okay, maybe I said ImageNet. That is the data. So yeah. Okay. So we have already. Yeah. Okay, even so the computation, uh, we had performed this experiment on our college server, so that is pretty powerful. So there we didn't felt that it took that much time, but we unfortunately we couldn't access that server for this presentation. Reducing the image size. Think if you could elaborate a bit on that uh, image size of what? Like, are you saying? Okay, are you saying that instead of the doing thing on the whole image, yeah, you are like cropping it in half and then finding and then other half and then finding it. I guess that is a pretty decent strategy, but you would lose the ones which you cut in half. I guess I say, but uh, like not actually in half. Uh, I think you won't lose much. You won't lose. You might count the ones which you cut in half multiple times. So that can be the only error. Otherwise, it is fine. Cropping it in half or one fourth. Actually, one fourth will increase a lot of duplicates. Yeah, it certainly counts semicircles. No, like as you can see that what. Okay, this mobile net output. Let me download it again. Oh, it is already there. Yeah. So no, still not this one. Yeah, as you can see, this this ball, it is lesser than half. Still, it is counting. So half semicircles aren't the problem. The problem only will be like if you cut in half, the ball will be counted in both the halves when you try to count the radius. So half is pretty like okay, but one fourth would increase a lot of duplicates. Okay, it is taking like for like forever. If you guys feel we can wrap up, uh, we have seen the output, and I can assure you that is the output you will get. Uh, so uh,
Okay. I mean, if the audience want to wait, then yeah,
okay,
fine. We
then it's okay. Then it's okay. Like I mean, I felt
Yeah,
if
because we have time till 6 o'clock. It's fine.
okay, then it's fine.
Yeah. Nalin, there's a message from Aditya.
Yeah. So parallelizing. E- we haven't tried it out and tried the parallelizing thing before, but not on this code, but certainly even if you instead of Keras, if you use something which can help, like I guess with Keras also you can access GPU, so even GPUs can make it faster, and parallelizing the calculation of predicting on one window. So okay, that yeah. So we haven't tried that one out, and we certainly can't do on collab that thing. But yes, like, that is a pretty decent strategy. Yeah, yeah. GPUs. Okay, I guess I'm just checking whether the rods one can get faster, like predict faster than this one. Okay, so same.
So, Nalin, do you think
Yeah,
we should wrap this session?
I guess like this one is not like it
Okay.
is taking a lot of time. So I guess like we have seen the output, like pre-saved output itself. So
Yes.
I guess we can wrap up.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for the session. We look forward to your participation in the upcoming sci-fi conference also.
Okay,
Um, yeah, please keep proposing workshops, talks. Yeah, it was nice
okay.
to have you.
Thank you.
So Barnik Biswas says, how much time did it take when you did it in college?
Yeah, it took only 15 minutes, 10 to 15, I guess, like even lesser than 15 minutes. And the rod one was even lesser. It was like 5 6 minutes. It was in on the college server.
So yeah, I think you can stop sharing your screen if you're
Okay,
wrapping this up. Yeah,
okay, okay,
thanks Nalin and Deepak. Um, so we have that was the last workshop for the day. Tomorrow we have talks lined up. And we have one keynote talk by Professor Serge Ray, and we have two invited talks, one by Mr. Pratap Vardhan and one by Mr. Dr. Ajit Kumar. So, yeah, we still have the registrations open in case your friends have missed out registering earlier. Please do share the link with them, and we'll send them the invitation links, and they can also join us all tomorrow. Mm, yeah, thank you. And if you have any questions, if you need any help about the conference, you can always post them on chat.scipy.in. The organizers are available there. Yeah. Ankit, if you want to say something, you can join the backstage and yeah, thanks.
Yeah, okay. I guess I have very bad lighting here, so I'll start off my camera. But yeah, I think you pretty much said it. So we'll see everybody tomorrow. I guess we ended up wrapping things up a little early today, so
Yes.
that's nice. Um, so tomorrow, I guess the schedule starts at
9:15.
9:15
Uh,
for the opening remarks. We'll have a short introduction to the platform again, and then 9:30 is when Professor Serge Ray's talk begins, the keynote. So we look forward to seeing everybody there. So I guess yeah, it's a wrap for the day. Thank you.